All right, let's jump right in. Even the full title of The Importance of Being Earnest tells us something important about the play. The subtitle is A Trivial Comedy for Serious People. Right away, Oscar Wilde is playing with opposites and contradictions. The play is full of humor, jokes, and ridiculous situations, but underneath all of that comedy, Wilde is also criticizing the society around him. As we read the play, we begin to see that the humor is not just there to entertain us. It is also used to expose the hypocrisy, social rules, and absurd values of Victorian upper-class society. So the play really centers around one important question. What does it actually mean to be earnest? Normally, the word earnest means being honest, sincere, serious, and trustworthy. At first, that sounds simple enough, but in Oscar Wilde's hands, the word becomes much more complicated and funny. Throughout the play, characters talk constantly about honesty and respectability, while secretly lying, pretending to be other people, and hiding double lives. Wilde turns this single word into a clever joke and uses it to expose the hypocrisy of society. The entire play is built around a clever pun involving the word earnest. On one hand, earnest means being honest, sincere, and truthful. These are qualities that society claims to admire and respect. But at the same time, Ernest is also simply a man's name, and throughout the play, the characters become strangely obsessed with the name Ernest, believing it sounds trustworthy and respectable. The funny part is that the characters who care most about being earnest are often dishonest, deceptive, and pretending to be someone else. This wordplay becomes the foundation of Oscar Wilde's satire. He uses the joke to expose the gap between how people appear on the surface and who they really are underneath. But to fully understand the joke, we first need to understand the society Oscar Wilde was making fun of. The play takes place during the late Victorian period in England, a time when upper-class society cared deeply about rules, reputation, manners, and proper behavior. People were expected to act serious, respectable, and morally correct at all times. Social status was extremely important, and many people judged others based on their family background, wealth, education, and public image. In this strict and highly controlled world, appearances mattered so much that people often hid their true thoughts and desires behind polite manners and formal behavior. That is exactly the kind of society Wilde satirizes throughout the play. Comedy of manners is a type of comedy that makes fun of the behaviors, manners, and social rules of a particular group of people. In The Importance of Being Earnest, Oscar Wilde uses this genre to satirize the British upper class. He exaggerates their habits, conversations, and social expectations to show how ridiculous they can sometimes be. The characters care deeply about appearances, reputation, marriage, and social status, often treating small social problems as if they are life-changing disasters. By turning these behaviors into comedy, Wilde invites the audience to laugh at the society he is criticizing. So, what was Victorian upper-class society actually like? It was built on very strict social rules and expectations. People were expected to behave properly, speak formally, and carefully protect their reputations. There was also a strong public focus on morality and respectability, even though many people behaved very differently in private. In many ways, appearances mattered more than honesty. Social class was extremely important, and marriage was often treated less like a romantic relationship and more like a social or financial arrangement between families. These are the values and rules that shape the world of The Importance of Being Earnest. And throughout the play, Oscar Wilde constantly mocks, challenges, and overturns them through comedy and satire. So, how does Oscar Wilde criticize this strict Victorian world? He does not attack it directly or seriously. Instead, he uses humor, wit, and clever language as his weapons. Throughout The Importance of Being Earnest, Wilde fills the dialogue with irony, exaggeration, contradictions, and witty jokes. The characters often say things that sound intelligent or proper at first, but are actually ridiculous when you think about them carefully. These literary techniques allow Wilde to entertain the audience, while also exposing the hypocrisy and absurdity of upper-class society. His main weapon, of course, is satire. And it's important to remember this isn't just about being funny for the sake of being funny. Satire is humor with a purpose. It's about using jokes and irony to expose how foolish or hypocritical people are. So, when Wilde is writing these hilarious lines, he's not just telling jokes, he's lining some serious punches. One of Oscar Wilde's most famous techniques is the epigram. An epigram is a short, clever, and memorable statement that sounds wise or serious, but often contains a surprising twist or contradiction. Wilde uses epigrams constantly throughout. The Importance of Being Earnest. The characters make sharp, witty comments that turn normal ideas upside down and challenge what society considers common sense. For example, a character might say something that sounds intelligent at first, but when you think about it more carefully, it is actually funny, ironic, or completely absurd. These epigrams are a huge part of the play's humor, and one of the reasons Wilde's dialogue feels so clever and memorable. One of the best examples of Wilde's epigrams comes from Lady Bracknell, who says, "To lose one parent, Mr. Worthing, may be regarded as a misfortune. To lose both looks like carelessness." The line is funny because it is so shockingly cold and unreasonable. Lady Bracknell talks about something truly tragic, being an orphan, as if it were simply bad manners or poor social behavior. This is exactly how Wilde's satire works. The audience laughs because the statement is absurd, but at the same time, the joke exposes the values of upper-class society. Lady Bracknell cares less about human emotions and more about social respectability and appearances. Through lines like this, Wilde criticizes how shallow and insensitive Victorian society could sometimes be. Another one of Oscar Wilde's favorite literary techniques is the paradox. A paradox is a statement that seems to contradict itself or sound impossible at first. But when you think about it more carefully, it reveals a deeper or more complicated truth. Wilde uses paradoxes throughout The Importance of Being Earnest to challenge simple black and white ways of thinking. Victorian society often tried to divide people into clear categories like respectable or improper, moral or immoral, serious or trivial. But Wilde's paradoxes constantly blur those lines and show that human behavior is usually much more complicated than society pretends. A great example of a paradox in The Importance of Being Earnest is Algernon's famous line, "The truth is rarely pure and never simple." At first, the statement sounds strange because people usually think of truth as something clear and straightforward. But Algernon suggests that real life is much more complicated than that. This idea was especially bold in Victorian society, where people strongly believed in simple moral rules and clear ideas about right and wrong. Through this paradox, Wilde quietly challenges that way of thinking. He suggests that human relationships, identity, and truth are often messy, complicated, and difficult to fit into neat categories. So now we can see that Oscar Wilde is using satire, epigrams, and paradoxes as his literary weapons. But what exactly is he attacking with all that wit? Two of his biggest targets are the foundations of Victorian upper-class society, social class and marriage. Throughout The Importance of Being Earnest, Wilde constantly mocks how obsessed people are with family background, wealth, reputation, and social status. He also satirizes marriage by showing how many characters treat it less like a relationship based on love and more like a social arrangement or business contract. One of the cleverest parts of The Importance of Being Earnest is how Wilde uses his characters not just as individuals, but also as symbols of different problems in Victorian society. Jack and Algernon represent social hypocrisy. Both men secretly live double lives and create fake identities to escape their responsibilities while still pretending to be respectable. Lady Bracknell represents the strict class system and social snobbery of the Victorian upper class. She judges people almost entirely by their family background, social status, and reputation. Meanwhile, Gwendolen and Cecily represent romantic ideals that are exaggerated and superficial. They become obsessed with appearances, fantasies, and even the name Ernest, often caring more about style and image than reality itself. Through these characters, Wilde turns the entire society into a comedy full of contradictions and absurd behavior. All of this hypocrisy is captured perfectly in one funny idea, bunburying. Algernon invents an imaginary friend named Bunbury, who is always sick. Whenever Algernon wants to escape a boring dinner party or avoid a social responsibility, he simply claims that poor Bunbury has become ill again and urgently needs his help. The idea is ridiculous and hilarious, but it also represents something much deeper. Bunburying becomes a symbol for the double lives people lead in Victorian society. The characters pretend to be respectable and proper in public, but secretly create excuses and fake identities so they can escape the strict rules and expectations placed on them. Algernon's line, "I have never seen anybody so pretty as Gwendolen, but I am engaged to Cecily," perfectly captures the ridiculousness of romance in The Importance of Being Earnest. Love in the play is often shallow and performative rather than deeply emotional. The women become obsessed with the name Ernest instead of the actual person, while the men treat engagements casually, almost like changing fashion trends. Wilde uses this humor to satirize how artificial and superficial upper-class romance could sometimes be. Okay, so this is all a brilliant takedown of some very stuffy Victorians a long, long time ago. But why do we still perform this play? Why does it still feel so incredibly fresh and funny today? Well, that's because the central joke isn't just about them, it's about us. See, the real genius of this play, the thing that makes it timeless, is that it's all about the gap between who we pretend to be in public and who we really are in private. It's about the performance of identity, and come on. Has there ever been a time when that theme is more relevant than right now? No, seriously, think about it. The Victorians had their fancy calling cards and super strict etiquette to perform their social status. What do we have? We have our social media bios and our perfectly curated Instagram feeds. They had the marriage market. We have online dating profiles where we literally craft the perfect, most desirable version of ourselves. It's the same game, just with different tools. Wilde was taking shots at a 19th century version of personal branding. And I think that's the ultimate point. The play is this hilarious, powerful reminder that so many of the social norms we follow, the things we do to fit in, they're just a performance. It's a script that we all kind of agree to follow, whether it actually makes any sense or not. And what Wilde does so brilliantly is he invites us to step back and just laugh at how absurd the whole performance can be. Which of course leaves us with one last question to think about. In our world, a world of carefully crafted online profiles and personal brands, are we all just bunburying in our own way? Isn't there a little bit of an escape artist, a little bit of a bunburyist in all of us?
If you'd like more personalized feedback, writing support, and discussion sessions, they're available with me or with our selected tutors. All the details are here.